We're going to talk about some really good budget cards from a set that was released in our playing heyday, Alex, Visions. There are 62 commons in the set Visions. Today, we're going to discuss some of my favorites. We've already talked about some of them in the End of the Battlefield episode. I think we talked about Shrieking Drake and Man of War, so we won't go back to those and revisit them today. But there's still plenty. Out of these 62 commons, I don't know, man. I think back in the day, if I were to think about like the sets we played with, there's no set that has better commons than Visions, in my opinion.
It has some good ones. That's for sure, yeah.
We're talking expansions. I don't know about the sets that have been released since then, but
It was an upswing in power from like a very low era of power before it. When like Mirage and Visions came out, they like restored like some, fun power to the game.
The first budget killer common from Visions I want to discuss is River Boa. Everybody probably knows River Boa. River Boa is 1 colorless, 1 green. It is a 2/1 summon snake. It has Island Walk, and you can pay 1 green to regenerate River Boa. Of all the walks, I think Island Walk is the top walk to have, because it's probably the most played color, right? If not the most played, I guarantee it's one of the top 2 most played colors.
Yeah.
You're going to run into a lot of people that has some blue on their side of the board.
Yes. And in that era too, like blue was very powerful and relevant. People played a lot of blue, I guess they always do, but blue defensive decks, like stasis-y kind of things and blue control decks and things like that. So this was a great way to get past some blockers, and he's so cheap and he regenerates. He's a good blocker.
He's a good blocker also. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I played with River Boa a lot.
Constantly.
He was pretty much an auto include in green.
I didn't draft in this environment, but I'd imagine this was like a killer draft card.
Yeah, this would be sweet in draft.
This card, you take a River Boa. The other thing is, I don't like land walk abilities all that much, but if you're going to have land walk in 1 color, I like it in green because, as you know, Alex, green comes with all sorts of pump spells. So if you can get through with a green creature and then giant growth, berserk, forget about it. River Boa has a 4.427 rating on Gather.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
He deserves it. I believe it.
I agree. The next killer common in Visions, Alex.
Oh.
It's Fire Blast.
Ciao.
Everybody probably knows Fire Blast too, right? Let me see how many. It was just reprinted in Dominator Remastered. They're still reprinting this card to this day. Cool. Holy crap! I'm looking at this. Is it true that Fire Blast had never been reprinted until now, like until recently? Dominator Remastered, Visions, all the way to Dominator Remastered. Maybe they felt like it was too powerful, and for a while they felt like they made a mistake when they printed this card.
You mean just outside of those like dual decks and?
I don't really count these things. Yeah. This Friday night.
Is there another set?
You can't.
Okay, that's okay.
World Championship deck, Premium Deck Series, Dual Decks, and Friday Night Promo.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. They just brought it back.
Everybody knows it, even though it's obviously hasn't been reprinted that often. Mm-hmm. Fire Blast is 4 colorless, 2 red. It's an instant. You may sacrifice 2 mountains instead of paying Fire Blast's casting cost. So this is a beast of a card. Mm-hmm. It's direct damage. It has good reach. By that, I mean it can nail. I always think of Sarah Angel. This can blow a Sarah Angel out of the sky when Lightning Bolt could not. This can blow a Sengir Vampire out of the sky when Lightning Bolt could not. So that's a big deal. The other thing is it turns it turns 2 mountains essentially into a better than a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
With 2 mountains in play, you can convert those 2 mountains into more direct damage than a Lightning Bolt. It made the red deck from a strong deck to something that was like nearly impossible to deal with when somebody built it and played it correctly. Normally, red deck, you have turn 1, you could Lightning Bolt somebody. They're down to 17 damage. Let's say turn 2, or 17 life. Let's say turn 2, you Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning them. Then they're down to 11 life. Turn 3, you play your Ball Lightning. Turn 4, you sack 2 mountains to a Fire Blast, and you Lightning Bolt them, and the game's over. red decks were already fast. This made the red deck insanely fast and insanely difficult to deal with and kind of annoying. And also, some people love this kind of Magic, but I'm like, come on, that's too basic. That's why I was never a tournament player. So my goal in Magic wasn't really to ever, I know this is the main, my goal in Magic when I sit down to play is never really to reduce my opponent to 0 life in the shortest number of turns possible. That might sound really stupid, but
I know what you mean. You're not trying to like maximize efficiency at all costs. Like,
yes,
it's like an efficient deck, but it's also based around an idea and something that looks fun.
I like to have a fun deck that is fun for me to play, a deck with a certain theme, and I like to take that deck and to make it as efficient as possible. I don't necessarily like to play the most efficient deck as possible, but this card made the red deck like the most efficient deck of its era, I think.
I never thought of this card. I guess it just might just be because I haven't thought of it in so long, but I never thought of it as having like that big of an impact immediately at the time, because I always thought like red was already strong. Like
it was already strong, yeah.
But I take your point that it changes the pay. I mean, forget about even the sacking the mountains thing. Having a 4 damage spell instead of a 3 damage spell is cool. It changes the pace and like the arithmetic of like how much damage you need to get rid of certain creatures and finish someone off. I like it because it's a great finisher move. Like they think you're like tapped out, they're trying to plan how to use their counter spells or whatever, and they think you're tapped out, and you can do 4 more, not just 3, but 4 more damage. So that's pretty, like you said, if you want to go all in on direct damage, this would fill up another 4-card slot in your red like heat deck very nicely, and it would boost the level of the deck up.
It's a great card. I am putting together my first. I never played a red deck back in the day, but I have partially built a pre-modern red deck. And yes, it does have 4 Fire Blasts in it.
We should get to the next card. We have lots of vision cards to do.
Quirion Ranger. Quirion Ranger is the next killer common from Visions. That is cheap.
Awesome.
I'm hoping all these are commons. I really think they are. Casting cost 1 green, summon elf 1/1. Return a forest you control to owner's hand to untap target creature. Use this ability only one turn or only once each turn. First of all, this card is a great mana amplifier, and this is kind of all I ever used it back in the day, a mana amplifier. Because you can, it doesn't say return an untapped forest to your hand, right? So you can tap a forest, return it to your hand, play it again, tap it, and then also the creature that you untap in a green deck could be a mana producing elf. So it's a great mana amplifier for those 2 reasons: untapping manimals and untapping lands that you can retap. There's so many creatures that you can play in combination with this creature, like nowadays too, that we didn't have back.
Yeah, I know. This card just got better.
I mean, my first thought when I first came back to Magic and I saw Priest of Titania was Priest of Titania. Yeah, that's the elf you can tap to generate a forest for each other elf in play. How much mana can you generate? Also, Well-Wisher, the elf that adds life to your life total for every elf that's in play.
Yeah, huge. You get to use each of those twice each turn now instead of once, like crazy.
On top of those, any elf that says for each elf in play. I don't know how many are out there right now, but I'm sure that there's a bunch. And Quirion Ranger can untap all of those things.
Use Quirion Ranger with Royal Assassin. Kill 2 creatures.
Royal Assassin, Armageddon, and Winter Orb. I have a partially built 10-land Stompy deck. And that's a green deck with a lot of low casting cost green creatures. And then like cards like Winter Orb. You don't really care if you can't untap more than 1 land, because most of the things you're going to do only involve 1 or 2 lands anyways.
Yes.
But this is good for, Winter Orb. You got 2 lands out. They're both tapped. You got the Winter Orb out. You can only untap 1 of those lands. but then you can return one of them to your hand and then replay it, and then it's untapped, and then you got your 2 lands untapped. So stuff like that. Armageddon, you could also use this to save a land, cast the Geddon.
Yeah, I like that strat. I didn't think about that like back in the day, I don't think, but yeah, now it's obvious you can use this to like protect your own lands if you have to.
There's probably so many things.
Fill your hand with lands for another reason, like if you have something that you need to discard lands or even just cards from your hand to do, you could pull your unused lands up or extra lands with this guy and use it for that.
We've definitely talked about cards that you need to discard a land to do something with, right? I'm trying to remember what they were. I've forgotten all of them. They're out there. If anybody out there who's listening does something cool with Query on Rager that's not at all along the lines of the things we mentioned already, leave it in the comments, please. I want to know what else to do with Query on Ranger. 4.5
Query on Ranger is great.
4.507 on Gatherer, so the people agree. Next killer common from Visions, Alex. This is one that I never really used because I don't tend to play these kind of decks, but it is definitely good. Impulse.
Yeah.
Also recently reprinted and Dominator Remastered.
I remember this card very well.
Impulse is a 1 colorless, 1 blue instant. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Shuffle your library afterwards, although they've now errated that so you don't get to shuffle your library afterwards. And
really?
Yes.
The shuffle is gone completely?
You no longer shuffle your library.
Huh.
Due to errata, you no longer shuffle your library.
Why they did that, do you know?
I don't know, actually. I swear I heard somebody talking about this, and they were like, the shuffling was pointless anyways, but...
Well, they're completely different outcomes.
I know.
I mean, they're totally different. One, the cards go back in your deck randomly, and the other one, they're stuck on the bottom of your deck for the rest of the game.
Yeah. It definitely seems good in a combo deck where you need to try to get your combo faster. Anything that helps you dig, anything that helps you get your combo faster is good. I also always like these cards in blue too, because sometimes you don't have a counter spell and you really need one. And somebody does something, you're like, oh shit, I would really love to counter. If you have an instant that lets you dig a little bit deeper in your deck, sometimes you find that counter. 4.673 on Gatherer, even higher than Query on Ranger. People love this even more than the Ranger, even more than the Fire Blast. Alex, it was also in a World Championship deck.
Another thing I like with cards like this is like when you're using Sylvan Library, you get into kind of like the benefit of it can slow down if you don't keep drawing cards. After the initial benefit of Sylvan Library, then you're kind of like stuck just seeing the same cards you don't want and putting them back. Mm-hmm. And this can help you like break that cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll get more bang for your buck out of your Sylvan Library than if like after your Impulse.
Impulse is also, it happens to be one of the top 10 most played cards in pre-modern. The next. I will call this common from Visions, not necessarily killer common. I just thought it was kind of interesting and not a bad card. Undo. I just like cards with this effect. The boomerang type effect. Undo, 1 colorless, 2 blue. Sorcery. Return 2 target creatures to owner's hands. Slows your opponent. It could be used on your own enter the battlefield creatures. That's when I pulled this up. When I was really going through enter the battlefield, I got to take advantage of enter the battlefield. I got to build a whole deck based on that. And I'm like, does Undo get into that deck? I don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's nice because you can do both. You can return one of their creatures that you don't like and then do the thing on one of your creatures that you want.
I also like using this stuff, not just to like bounce something back to their hand to slow them down or to save you for one more turn or to make them pay mana to play something they already played. I like to use these kind of things to like bounce something back that I can now counter because I have a counter spell in my hand now that I didn't have in my hand back when they played it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That never really...
say discard, but yeah, okay.
That's fine too, discard also.
Yeah.
3.694 on Gather, if I didn't say that already. Now, okay. Alex, some more killer comments from Visions. Not all of these are killer comments. There's the charms. I don't have a whole lot to say about the charms. These are 1 casting cost cards for each color. There's Hope Charm for white, Vision Charm for blue, Funeral Charm for black, Hearth Charm for red, and Emerald Charm for green. Vision Charm gets big play, and I will be playing this in Phyrexian Dreadnought decks.
Yeah.
And Phyrexian Dreadnought existed here, but I think the Dreadnought deck wasn't as scary when you just had one option to do this type of thing. So you had your 4 Dreadnoughts and your 4 Vision Charms, and you needed to get your Vision Charms in your hand at the same time as your Dreadnought in order to be able to play that combo. But nowadays you have the Vision Charms and you have Stifle and you have a couple other things too. I think people use Reality Ripple also to bring their Phyrexian Dreadnought into play without having to sacrifice it right away. Reality Ripple was a Mirage card.
Oh, okay.
We didn't pay attention to that. For Vision Charm is 1 blue instant, choose 1. Target artifact phases out. So this is how it's used in the Dreadnought deck. You play your Dreadnought, you phase it out. And then you don't need to sacrifice your Dreadnought if you don't want to sacrifice creatures with power up to 12, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Or you put the top 4 cards from target player's library into his or her graveyard.
That's how I'm excited to use this card.
That seems really good.
I want to put it in like either some kind of, if not straight mill, some kind of deck where I maybe like steal cards out of people's graveyards or want to fill my own graveyard with cards.
I'm just reading that now and I'm like, I never see anybody use this card in that way, but you get to take 4 of their cards.
I've seen it in a mill deck list, and
okay.
I think I've seen it in black-blue, people talking about using it with stuff, like filling up your graveyard so you can shallow grave or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Are all lands of one type or basic lands of your choice until end of turn. That's when I have my blue-green Visions theme deck. But also
River Boas.
But also with unlimited cards available to me. That's when I play on my River Boas and I don't care. You don't care about anything because you're like, I don't have any islands. And then I line up my 4 River Boas, I play my Vision Charm, and then I Giant Growth, Berserk all of them. And the game's over. But Vision Charm is really the star these days because of the phasing ability and the way it can be used to get your Phyrexian Dreadnought into play. Another one, we looked at this just the other day, I think, maybe yesterday, Emerald Charm, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 green instant, choose 1, untap target permanent, so it's a half a twiddle, or destroy target global enchantment, or target creature loses flying until end of turn. So, back in the day, if you wanted to remove enchantments in green, there weren't that many options, right?
Yeah, there were far fewer. It's crazy how many more options there are now.
So maybe you could use this back in the day for that purpose. I think this is why this came up in our discussion the other day too, because you were looking for enchantment removal, things that remove only enchantments. But you know what? When I pulled this one up, I said it was the second best. Really, in my head, one of these abilities was give target creature trample, but that's not what it does. That's what I thought I was going to read, but that's not what I'm reading. Which instead of untap target permanent, it should say give target creature trample. Or
target permanent is much more like a blue thing.
It's a blue effect, yeah. So anyways, just some little things to throw out there. The charms. I'm probably not going to play them other than the Vision Charm.
Yeah, I liked when they came out with this idea for a card, like the 1 casting cost that can do multiple things. And I always wanted to try to use some of them for something, but every time I'm kind of like, it's not really going to make the cut.
They're probably I wonder how much play they get in Pauper. Okay, Alex, I heard that you had some other comments from Visions that I wasn't thinking about. You wanted to give them a shout out.
I put a few down.
I'll pull up the first one. Coercion.
It's probably not as good as it used to be, but when it came out and there weren't too many discard spells, this also lets you look at someone's hand and pick. It was targeted discard that let you see their hand, and that was kind of new and unusual. Cicada Lancer, the red card, remember that? Flanking?
I just have a vague memory.
So I expected when I started looking through this, I was going to pull up this card and Jolreal Centaur, which I'm sure you remember, but that I did not.
Another flanker?
It's from Mirage. I was thinking it was from the same set, but no, Jolreal Centaur came out first, and then Cicada Lancer came out in Visions. It's 2 colorless, 1 red, summon Knight. He's 2/2. He has flanking, and he has haste.
Yeah, I mean, when I see something with haste,
has a good rating.
When I see something with haste, I automatically, like a creature, I think of it as like having 1 lower mana casting cost than it really does.
Yeah, yeah.
So I look at this, I'm like, okay, it's a 2/2 for 2 in a way, because you get to attack with it right when it comes in. In addition to that, nobody's going to want to block it with a 2/2 on their end because it has flanking.
Right.
So it's almost like a 2.5 for 2.
3.94 on Gatherer.
Okay, it gets respect.
I think there was some buzz about this card when it came out. I think people were like, oh, this is an obvious pick to go into, a quick red deck. It has haste, it has flanking. Like you said, people don't want to block, especially in a red deck. You don't want to block something, have it lose the -1/-1. Now your creature's in like lightning bolt range.
Yeah.
Because they could finish it off easily. Mystic Veil. Do you remember this card? It's a blue.
Is this the vision card, Mystic Veil?
Yes.
I don't remember it. I remember the next one in the list, but
I
remember the art.
Yeah, okay. I really liked this when it came out because there was not a lot of stuff that gave creatures Shroud at all back then. I think you had to pick. There was something from Legends. I can't even remember what it was called.
Spectral Cloak.
Yeah, Spectral Cloak. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. And I had Spectral Cloak in my Ali from Cairo deck. I saw this. This came out. I was like, oh, it's an upgrade from. I wish I still had that deck. Anyways, it's 1 blue, 1 colorless. It's an enchant creature. You may choose to play it as an instant, but if you do, you bury it at the end of turn, and enchanted creature has Shroud. So it's a cheap Shroud enchantment to put on something, or you can use it as an instant, basically as a counterspell, if they're targeting your creature. Spider Climb is the other one from Visions that is similar to this. It's 1 green. It gives a creature +0/+3, and it can now block flying. And it also has that flash type effect. You can play it as an instant, and then it gets buried.
So similar, not in its effect, but similar in the way you can play it. You can play it as an instant. Okay.
Yes. And it gives a creature, it's like a web type effect. It gives a creature +0/+3, and it can block creatures with flying. For 1 green mana, I like that. It's a nice combat trick.
What is Death Watch? Is this another Visions card? You have this on the list?
2 more cards. Death Watch.
I have no memory of.
I remember, I'm pretty sure I have one because I remember the art and I never
sell it. 19 cents.
Yeah. And I definitely don't think I thought it was good at all. It's just a card I didn't pay attention to. When I saw it today, I was like, this might actually be good.
Another enchant creature, 1 black. If enchanted creature is put into any graveyard, that creature's controller loses an amount of life equal to its power, and you gain an amount of life equal to its toughness.
Do you hate it? Is it bad?
No.
What I'm thinking about with this is it's like I'm going to cast something that like doesn't necessarily do damage, but like kills the creature outright, like a terror, or something. I play this instantly, like right before it, in combination with that, and now I do a creature removal, damage to them, and life gain to me.
Yeah, I was just thinking of this. So when I first started reading this, I was thinking about the cards we just talked about in a couple episodes ago. Delirium, right? The other one I keep forgetting the name of. It's not Backdraft. It's Backlash, maybe.
Oh, Backlash. Okay.
Yeah, combining Death Watch with a Terror or something for 3 mana. Does what those 2 cards do, but also kills the creature instead of just taps it. And it gives you life.
And it gives you life.
The only problem is you need to have both cards. It becomes a combo.
Right. It's now a combo instead of just 1 creature removal card. But yeah, I don't know. It's good. I like it because you can use this on their big baddie when you kill it.
The only thing I don't like about it, and this is a big thing, this is probably why it never gets played. If you just have this card, it essentially does nothing.
Yeah,
it just sits there on your opponent's creature. You need to then do the thing with another card.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's going to be just dead cardboard.
There might be like, in a deck, there are some cards that do like every player has to sacrifice a creature every turn. What's that? Is that Abyss?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did I just describe Abyss? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can put in an Abyss deck.
Yeah.
I just need my 4 Abysses.
But Deathwatch has a 3.51. That's not bad.
Okay, that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all.
I'm looking at what people say. Not a whole lot, I think, that we can pull out of the comments, but someone talks about using it with a donate combo, so you can give something, deliberately give a certain creature to them and then use it.
Hard to pull off. Then you
One guy says
3.
Death Watch and Terror. Yeah. Now we're like getting into a convoluted combo. So, anyways, yeah, Death Watch is on my list
On
of
your
things
watch
to
list.
maybe play with. Check it out sometime.
You have another one, Alex. I have no memory of this card at
Yep.
all. When I read the card name, I just immediately think of a Weatherlight card, but we're not talking about Weatherlight right now. So
yeah, when I saw the name, some of these black card names, especially, you're like, what? Which card is that? A lot of them do the same thing. But I'm glad because I thought maybe we talked about this and I forgot it.
I like the
Infernal
art.
Harvest is a sorcery, 1 black, 1 colorless. Return X swamps you control to owner's hand. Infernal Harvest deals X damage divided any way you choose among any number of target creatures. I have to confess that I think the first time I read this card, I thought it said any target and not target creatures. Thought you could do it to the player as well.
And now you're like, I don't like this card any longer.
But I was thinking about using this in like a white-black Armageddon combo.
Yeah. You could still do that. Yeah.
Yes. I think it would still be good for that. Even though it's a little bit less versatile as far as like the damage that it does. You can't do it to the player anymore, so that's sad.
White, black, green, Armageddon, Infernal Harvest, Quirion Rager, Urnam Jajin deck, Geddon deck. Infernal Ranger Urnam Geddon. I think that brings to an end our discussion of the killer commons of Visions.